OpenAI is bringing true AI search capabilities within ChatGPT called ChatGPT Search, and it's being rolled out to all users, including free users, in the coming months. But before you get too excited, there is one major flaw you'll want to know. This is definitely something OpenAI hope you never noticed. In this video, I'll briefly cover what is and how to use ChatGPT Search, why its results are currently and most definitely skewed, and why I still do not plan to stop using Google anytime soon. ChatGPT Search is a new feature that brings live internet search directly into ChatGPT, giving you the ability to go beyond its training data and pulling information from the internet. But ChatGPT accessing the internet is nothing new, so what makes ChatGPT Search any different? Previously, ChatGPT's internet access was facilitated through a browsing plugin, which is similar to how you and I would open a new tab or a window and do the search ourselves, except that ChatGPT is much quicker at reading and interpreting the results. Now, with ChatGPT Search, OpenAI has made this function much more efficient and much more integrated. No plugins, no settings to adjust, just ask ChatGPT your question and ChatGPT will automatically decide if it needs to search the web, giving you a quick summary along with the links to relevant sources. This is especially useful for things like checking the weather in Santa Monica, California. Oh, there's a severe weather alert for Malibu Coast. But other than that, the weather looks pretty nice for now. ChatGPT Search can also pull up stock information, but what's really cool here is that you can ask it at the same time to give you additional context, such as when I asked it what is the impact of Apple Intelligence to the stock price. You can also ask for up-to-date information on sporting events, and again, the cool part is that you can ask for additional information. So for example, I asked what are the upcoming football games and who are the favorites to win. This next one surprised me a bit. You can ask ChatGPT Search to look up things in a map, and in my example, I looked up restaurants, but I added some constraints such as being open right now and have vegetarian options. Surprisingly, the first three results show that they are open, and there was a little bit of a text explaining and confirming that they had vegetarian dishes. And lastly, the feature I think is the most important and is also the main topic of this video is ChatGPT Search's ability to look up news information. Earlier we saw there was a wind advisory in Malibu, which made me wonder, why is California having so many fires? The response I get back from ChatGPT is pretty good in the sense that it provides a reasonable explanation. But here lies the weakness that is hiding in plain sight. Can you see it? It's the sources. From what I could gather, ChatGPT Search works by partnering up with news media outlets to allow ChatGPT to find and use their content in its responses. But as you might have guessed, not everyone is thrilled or wants to work with OpenAI. In the release blog of ChatGPT Search, OpenAI specifically calls out a few of their global publisher partners, but does not mention anything about news outlets that are not part of the program and how it could impact its responses. And that's what's so concerning to me. When searching for news online, you want the results to be complete and unbiased. But if some news media outlets are left out simply because they don't play nice with OpenAI, then depending on the mix and the topic, there is potential for bias in the results. And if there is bias, I also imagine it's quite difficult or challenging to measure that bias without knowing what news outlets are excluded. Let's try a little non-scientific experiment here. I'm going to pick a city and ask ChatGPT Search about its local news. When we look at the results and its sources, I'm expecting the exclusion of some very prominent news outlet. I'll choose New York City because I know there's a bit of drama going on there between OpenAI and a well-known news media outlet. Let's first ask Perplexity AI, another AI search engine, to rank New York City's local news online media outlets. From the results, I see the number one spot taken by the Wall Street Journal, followed by the New York Times, then New York Post, Newsday, and New York Daily News. To double check, let's ask Google what are the top ones as well. The AI overview results points to WABC TV, NBC4, and also includes the New York Times. But looking below at the snippet from Wikipedia, it shows Wall Street Journal at the number one spot and pretty much the same results that we saw earlier, just in a different order. Now let's ask ChatGPT for the local news in New York. Without going into too much detail, the response from ChatGPT looks like it's summarizing the top local news. Things are looking pretty good, right? Yes, except when looking closely at the sources, you will notice that some of the top publishers we identified earlier are nowhere in sight. There are no citations of the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Newsday, or New York Daily News. So what this little experiment confirms for me is that ChatGPT is largely limited to partners that have agreements with OpenAI. So while it's great for pulling in headlines from large, widely known publications like Reuters and the New York Post, it could potentially fall short when it comes to smaller or non-partner outlets. This can lead to a narrower view of the news and potentially for some level of bias, especially when it's not known which outlets are not in partnership with OpenAI. Now, don't get me wrong here, ChatGPT Search is still incredibly useful and I use it every day and will continue doing so. It's quick, it's easy, it's informative, and I'm confident that it'll continue improving. But being aware of its limitations, or let's call them gaps in transparency, is something worth being aware of and hopefully something that you can use to make better decisions about when and how to use it. So for that reason, I won't be completely replacing Google with ChatGPT Search. I'll still be using Google when searching for news that are not so straightforward and maybe a little bit complicated, but at the very least, I'll definitely be increasing my usage of ChatGPT. If you want to learn more about ChatGPT, watch this video next or subscribe to my channel so you can stay up to date with ChatGPT and AI tools.